This episode of the Red and White Podcast is brought to you by Nick Overcash at Prime Lending. If you're in the market for a new home, building a home and need a construction loan, or just refinancing, do yourself a favor and reach out to Nick. If you're just now starting to think about your options, talk to Nick. He's got the experience to get you the best solution for your situation. Everybody's situation is unique, and you need that experience. He's a Pack fan, and we have to support our own. And speaking of, if you mention this podcast, he'll support you by offering you $500 off your closing costs. That's a win for you. That's a win for Nick. That's a win for the podcast. So check out nickovercash.com or call him at 919-854-4457. You can ask him financial questions or just talk to him about Wolfpack football. Either way, he'll be just as happy to talk to you. Hello, friends. We're back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I am your host, Evan, here as always with my co-host, back from Rocky Top Land, Dustin. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm great. Can't be better.
Well, we have a lot to talk about to get into that one this week. But let's first start off with BC. And I got to say, that was one of the shittiest games we've played in a long time. And somehow we won. I really don't know what to think of it. You know, I think a lot of people are saying, kind of as we did before the Pitt game, that was one of those games that you go up there and you play bad, look unfocused, and you lose. And BC has a way with us of doing that. But I don't know, man. I thought I'm still not sure what to think about that game. We won, which is great, and you won after playing really bad. But after all the times that I've stood up for Drink, I thought he called one of the worst games that he's ever called after calling one of the best games that he's ever called. Like, I thought he called the Clemson game perfectly. I thought the play calling in this BC game was awful. We're a better team. We have more talent than them. And to continually to try to run trick plays and just get cute with it and play finesse football is
I thought you liked the trick plays.
I do, but in certain situations.
Yeah.
Like, you don't call them in BC. You don't call. You just don't need them against BC. And you saw what won us that game is they went back to what we're good at. And is getting the ball to Hines, getting the ball to Samuels. Right, they had two big plays. Samuels rips off a 20-some yarder, and then Hines just does what Hines does, and he breaks one down the sideline. 50-yard touchdown run, basically sealed the game. And I think that getting away from that was just poor form. I don't know why our wide receivers couldn't catch the ball, and they couldn't get separation from the BC defensive backs. It was just a bad combination. I think they should have recognized that early and adjusted, and he didn't, and continued to be frustrating. And that was really frustrating, man. People were rightly upset on Twitter about it. I know you didn't get to watch it and you were listening to it. What's your feeling on it?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone in this area code knows my feelings on trick plays. I don't think... Yeah. I get one every once in a while, but I think that it needs to be against teams where you need them and in situations where you need them. And I don't know. I keep thinking, we should model our program after Clemson because what they've done works. How often do they have to bust out trick plays to win games?
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's risky, as it was obvious this week. The payoff, if you score on them, cool, that's fine. You should be able to score on regular plays too. Plays that aren't high risk, plays that will keep your team in a rhythm, Like what good does how does your team stay in rhythm? Say your quarterback's taking you down the field and there's like, "Oh, we're going to run Wildcat now." That disrupts the flow of the game. I don't like it. I never have. Like you said, Clemson was a good called game, but I also think that we have a formula for playing Clemson.
Right.
That's starting to be proven. It hasn't won yet, but we play them competitively, and it's the same formula every year that we have to run. So that game worked out well. The game before that, trash. this game trash. I'm not. I don't know. I haven't been sold on him, and I was starting to come around, but I don't know. It's going back to if there's more than one trick play in a game, I'm pissed off, and that's. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. But this is a game that we should win, and if they didn't have if they had their starting quarterback the whole game, I don't know that we win that game. So
yeah, you're right, and I think we're 10 games into the season, and trick plays have maybe worked once.
Yeah.
And that was because Parr made a ridiculously great catch. I mean, other than that, they just haven't worked. So you just got to recognize that and adjust and just keep them in your pocket until you can refine them. You know, you're right. I don't think we win that game if BC doesn't lose. If they keep their starting quarterback. I mean, that guy was not a huge threat, but he's a threat to run. And I think our defense, I think our defense has been overall disappointing, which is hard to say. If you look at the numbers, you're like, wow, their defense is, top 10 or top 20, whatever it is right now. But really, I mean, that's another week in a row, and this is 4 in a row that we've let a running back, and this time a freshman running back, pile up 100 plus yards and break a big run. We couldn't stop that guy.
I'm not super upset about that. He's the all-time leading freshman rusher in BC history,
which is crazy considering they had Andre Williams.
Yeah. So here you go. Fun facts from me having to listen to the BC radio call. They're convinced he's going to be the best running back to ever come out of that school. And he's had the best year a freshman has ever had there. So I'm not too upset about that. I'm not pissed off at the defense too much. BC's been scoring 40 points a game recently.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll take the defensive output, but I don't know. We have to play better against those kind of teams.
Yeah, I should take that back a little bit. I agree that the defense has been good. Defense has kept us in this game and kept us in those games. I just, I believe that if that quarterback doesn't get hurt, it's a different story.
But I don't know that that's the defense's fault, though. We should score more than we did.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think they said that. I think it was Chubb. If anybody watched the Wolfpack 1 series, Chubb was on the sideline saying, they're not getting it done. We got to get it done. It's on us. And he was talking about the offense.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to score on BC. You put up 31 on Clemson. You can't score on BC. I don't know. It's a little disturbing. I don't know if it was a focus or whatever it was, but really not happy with how they played. And it's got to get better. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I think Drink called an awful game, and that's got to get better too. I think Doran's got to step in and say, hey, fix this, right? You're better than that. We're better than that. Don't put our guys in that position. Get the ball to the guy that matter. Get it to Harmon. Get it to Hines. Get it to Samuels.
I do understand some of the calls, just because it didn't look to be a normal offense. Like Finley was missing some throws that he normally makes. Receivers were dropping catches that they normally catch. Mm-hmm. So I understand kind of why it's like, oh, well, let's try this. But overall, that shit doesn't work.
Right.
So, stick to what you know. Stick to what has been successful for your team all year. I'm not going to defend the guy. I obviously have issues with him anyway. So,
well, one of the things I didn't like, and then we sort of saw this in the week before, is the defense showing their hand. So BC blitzed pretty much every play, it seemed like. And I don't think we did enough to counter that, to keep them honest. We didn't run many screen passes. The one we did got intercepted because it was a bad pass by Finley. I just thought you can see what the defense is going to do, and you probably know what Adazio's defenses are going to do. And I just don't think we game plan for it very well.
I agree.
It's hindsight, and it could be just that the guys had an off game, but it was frustrating, man. I know people on the Twitter world were just as frustrated. So we need better this week. And as a side note, I'm going to hate seeing that running back for 4 years, man. That kid he's good. He's big and fast, and
yeah, he's going to get better too.
He's going to get better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like when we saw Lamar Jackson for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh man, he's good, but damn, we have to play him again for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he'll have that effect, but only because he doesn't have the team around him to do it. But yeah, he's gonna. I don't doubt he'll get 100 yards 3 more years against State. So, and that's nothing against our defense. He's probably an NFL back. So
it was pretty interesting seeing that they completely pulled him out when they were passing. Like, he was not in there at one passing down. So either he can't block or he can't catch, and it may be both, which is kind of strange. But he'll get better at that for sure.
Yeah,
and he's legit. He's the real deal.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got. I know you had something else you want to talk about. What you got?
Yeah, I listened to XM for the game because I was in Tennessee, and they always use the home team's broadcast. So BC Radio went on like a 5-minute rant about how awful State fans are, and talked about them being delusional and thinking they should be winning championships or on the same level as a Clemson or Florida State. And they even mentioned Louisville, which I laughed at. Said that we have unrealistic expectations. We're not fair to Doran, who's done a good job, and that they appreciate their fans at BC because they understand what they are and they're okay with it. There's a lot of things wrong with all that. One, BC doesn't have fans. They play in front of an empty stadium. Two, BC is not on the same level as an NC State. They're a private Catholic school with a small enrollment. I laughed. It pissed me off, but I kind of understand what they're saying because I do think we have really high expectations. But to hear someone like BC making fun of us for it just really pissed me off.
I mean, that's no perspective, right? I mean, that's just, all right, we've settled for being BC. We're not going to be good at anything ever. Like, okay, we'll play hockey maybe. I mean, it's embarrassing that they would bring that up. I mean, there was like 6 fans in the stands, and it was senior day. You know, it was like, just move along. It's something better to talk about. And I guess, you know, it does kind of bring in part the national
perception of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You know, I really don't care what they think about our fans. I think every school has their asshole fan base. You know, we've talked about it before. But their national perception of the program, you know, unfortunately, we haven't won anything in a long time, so maybe it's justified. But you just make yourself sound like an idiot when you start talking like that. Like, oh, fans should be happy being 4-4 or whatever they are. You know, whatever. It's BC. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather have our fans than no fans like they have. So
yeah, right.
They could care less what happens with Boston College sports on any given day. So I'm fine with them being judgmental of us. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I'd much rather have a passionate fan base that cares than one that doesn't care.
Yeah, that's. Whew. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. That was just kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, I don't know why the radio guys would talk about that. It seems weird. I mean, and it's not we hadn't played, you know, 2 highly competitive games, and we just took Clemson down to the wire, and you know, we've lost 1 game in the ACC. Like, what do they want from us?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Also, I looked back, and they kept referring to their defense as the Maroon Mayhem. Yeah, every tackle. Oh, the Maroon Mayhem with a nice tackle in the back. Yeah, it was awful.
Oh my god.
So, anyway, what about Wake Forest?
All right, on to Wake Forest. People are going to think I have a love affair with Dave Clawson, but man, the guy can coach. And Wake Forest is a much better team than I think any of us anticipated. They opened as actually a 3.5-point favorite on most of the books, and it's coming down to about a point, pick 'em, depending on where you go. But, I mean, it's basically a toss-up. I think they're pretty good, and I think they're really well coached. It's going to hurt that they lost Dortch, their freshman wide receiver, who was just absolutely killing it. but it's just don't look past the Deacons.
No, and when you look at point spreads, you got to remember there's generally like a 3-point gift given to a home team. So if it opens at 3.5, they're basically saying it's a toss up to start with.
Right.
Money's moved towards State, so we're 1.5, but I would still consider that as kind of a favorite.
Right.
But it looks like a 21-20 game in the eyes of them. So I don't know a lot about Wake Forest except that they are playing well. They're playing better than. I mean, we knew that he would get them there eventually, but I think it happened a little quicker than anyone expected. And I don't think they're going to just wow anybody, but they're going to play a generally tough game anytime you get them. So it's the same thing as last week, though. We said you could just listen to the BC preview, and that was what we would say, and that's pretty solid and set. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those games that we should win. I think we're a more talented team. I think we're probably the better team. I think they might be better coached. I think they've played more consistently, if that makes more sense. I think all year they've been pretty steady. So I don't. I think we know what we'll expect we can get from them. It's a matter of how well prepared we are and how the team comes out to play. I know Dorn has emphasized the team that they're playing for the the mythical state championship, which is fine. Give them something to play for. But you're also playing for potential Orange Bowl bid. What do you know about that?
I just saw where Joe Giglio tweeted out last night that if Miami and Clemson both make the playoff, which is. I mean, that's going to be difficult because they're going to end up playing each other. And State wins out, then they should or could be headed to the Orange Bowl. So there's still a lot to play for, even against a Wake and Carolina. I mean, we're kind of in a race with VT for best possible bowl game here.
Yeah.
So nobody really saw Miami coming out like they did. So the Coastal's generally overlooked, but they're going to take a bigger bowl game now. So it's which second best team is going to get the bowl game, and we have to kind of do our part to make sure it's us.
I guess what's the one after that? Would it be the Orange Bowl, then the Peach or Chick-fil-A Bowl?
I mean, it's Citrus, I think or no, not Citrus. I'm wrong conference. I don't know what would come after that. The Camping World's in there. The Orange Bowl would be huge, though. So we need to make sure that if we're not in it, it's because Miami or Clemson missed the playoff, not because we didn't win out. So,
right. And I think, going back to the Wake Forest game, I think we're the better team and we should win. I just want us to play like we can play. And I'll give Doran credit. He's kind of broken that streak of going to Winston-Salem and playing like shit. Because the last time we went down there, we beat the crap out of them. And they weren't
still scared of Winston-Salem, though.
It's still the black hole for us. It's still not good. But it makes me feel a little better, And it's weird. The funny thing is, I feel better for us having played really bad at BC. It logically doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think going into a game and coming after, we're like, all right, we got to play better than this because we can't do like this in Winston-Salem and play well and win. I mean, play bad and win. So they will play well. And then Wake Forest, on the other hand, just played Syracuse, and what a game that was. Wake Forest scored 64 points, and they were down 20 at halftime or something like that. They went on a 40-5 run in the second half and ended up beating Syracuse 64-40 something. I mean, so they played really well. They were hitting on all cylinders. And so it's kind of one of those things where, all right, Wake's playing well, Pac didn't play well. It should line up for the bad, but for me, and this may be the perverse nature of being a State fan, is like, I think that's better for us. I think it's better that they played well and we played bad. Maybe they're more arrogant or something about it, but.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And the BC was a tough situation, coming off 2 losses. We had to be getting kind of a big head before those. Yeah. Losses bring us back down to earth, and you might think it sounds weird, but you can forget how to win a game in 2 weeks. So, having to fight for that, I think is a good thing. I feel better going into it with a close win as opposed to going up to BC and winning by 3 scores.
Yeah.
So
I don't want us thinking we're better than everybody else just by talent.
No.
That's a recipe for disaster. Question from Twitter world. Baxter asks, what seems more likely? We beat Wake Forest in football or basketball this year? I guess he's referencing that Wake Forest just lost to Liberty last night. But
yeah, I think we can beat them in both. Yeah. Hopefully, anyway. If not, then I would be more accepting of it in basketball than football. So we're not going to have a whole lot to play for in basketball this year, I don't believe. But football still matters. So.
Yeah. You mentioned Miami, and I just make a note of it. I was bashing Miami all year because they hadn't really played anybody. They didn't look good against Carolina. Man, they look good against Notre Dame. They came out and just whipped them. They whipped them up front. Notre Dame couldn't do anything. I was really impressed, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think they might actually be for real. So if not, they're fooling me now.
They still have the freshman quarterback. I think that's an issue. But they are better than I was imagining or better than I was anticipating. I'll give them credit. They look good. Yeah. All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with some more. There's a lot more to talk about. Picture this. Your buddy's a Falcons fan. You're a Panthers fan. You go to trashtalktext.com, and once a day for 2 weeks at a random time, he gets a text reminding him the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. That's quality entertainment. Check out trashtalktext.com and send your friends anonymous trash talk about their favorite team. As always, if you're interested in learning more about sponsoring the podcast or our sponsors themselves, check out redandwhitepodcast.com/sponsors. All right, folks, we're back. Thanks for listening. And we got some, moving on from football, I got some other stuff to talk about. NC State basketball started with a flurry of games in the last few days. And there's been some good news. Braxton Beverly gets approved by the NCAA with new information. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah. Well, the NCAA is a bunch of pussies. All you have to do to beat them is get a lawyer, and that's fine. That worked out well for this time. But I mean, it's not that I'm not happy about it. I am. It's just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They stick to their guns sometimes. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they care about public perception. Sometimes they don't. But we came out with a win out of it this time, so I can't complain, right?
Yeah, they're 3-0. They won the games they should. They won them pretty big. And gasp, they're playing a little bit of defense.
Yeah, I didn't know. I don't know what's happening during that game against Bryant. They forced 27 turnovers, third most in PNC history, and this one was the one most forced by a state team at PNC since 2002. That was 15 years ago.
Holy cow!
So that's the best defense that's been played in that building in 15 years. Let that sink in. I mean, there was a bunch of bullshit to deal with there. We had Gottfried, we had the Sidney Lowe show. So these are their kids thinking about applying to state now that weren't alive when we played defense. So this is kind of cool. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it actually gets called officiating wise once conference play starts. I'm really interested in that. But for right now, it's a trip, man.
It is. It's one of those things that it's kind of refreshing to see. And I recall the first game when Pack was up 20, and I don't remember what happened. There was a bad play or a bad series of plays, and Kevin Keats was not happy about it. Typically we're up 20, and the coaches kind of get lackadaisical, but he was pushing them hard. And I like that. I like to see that. I think they scored 102 points first game. They've scored in the 90s the other two.
Is there a 100-point promotion for us like there is Carolina?
I don't think so. I think they were kind of the promotion they were talking about on TV was in this
Bojangles deal,
it was
right?
Bojangles, but if the other team missed 2 free throws in a row, then everybody got biscuits. And so also our fans were pulling for us to foul them just to get them to shoot free throws. I mean,
wait, what? I thought it was a 100-point deal.
I don't think we have. I don't know if we have one of those. I think that's the Carolina thing.
I didn't know we had any at all. That's what I was thinking. We're gonna have to get a point deal. Apparently,
we need a biscuit. We need a biscuit.
Snoopy's is gonna have to sling 50-cent hot dogs or something because
somebody calls.
We might score 100.
Yeah, and I thought it was actually a good promotion because the fans were actually in at the end of the game. It was kind of a good atmosphere. You know, you're up 40 points and they're still cheering for guys to miss free throws. I mean, that was pretty good. I like that. So whoever thought of that good idea, let's keep it going. I think they should do that all the time. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm happy to see it. My perspective on the basketball team is that we're missing some of those pieces. You know, we're missing, and I guess maybe I'm comparing everybody to Dennis Smith Jr. You're missing the dynamic athlete. But they got a bunch of guys that can play basketball. You know, they got a bunch of guys that are going to hustle and play hard. It'll be fun to see. I don't think they'll be as bad as people expect them to be. I don't think anything great's coming from this team, but it's showing a lot of upward momentum, a lot of positivity. I think everybody's really happy with what we've seen so far.
Yeah, that'll change when we play Arizona. But for now, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me interject. Speaking of the Millers in Arizona.
That's where I was going with it.
Archie Miller, you know, while it packs up 40 against, I don't remember who he even played, Charleston Southern or one of those teams. Archie Miller lost his opening game by 20-plus points to Indiana State. So while we're not good enough for Archie Miller, Indiana is out there losing to Indiana State. To fight it.
Dude, there were boos raining down like that entire second half. I hated that.
Yeah,
I really
the Fighting
did.
Larry Birds took it to Archie Miller.
Yeah. Oh well. God only knows what they would have done to us, you know. So.
Right. Speaking of pieces of the program, recruiting. How do you think Kevin Keats is doing so far?
Man, he was putting together a top class before we'd even played, which was just baffling to me, but picked up a pretty big piece last night to make it even better. What's that kid's name? The JUCO, JUCO guy. And it's nice to see that, it's not just going to be, 17, 18-year-old kids coming in, but guys that can play next year out of JUCO that have some experience at the college level. Mm-hmm. That's really going to be a healthy, boost. That's what I was trying to figure out earlier. Like looking at the class, looking at what could be there. I mean, it's not unrealistic to think maybe a 25th or 24th ranked team next year. Which is possible, and that's crazy.
Next year's gonna be crazy, man, because we're gonna have so much turnover from this roster. I think they said there's potentially 8 new players next year between the recruits and guys leaving. Abu's gone, Freeman's gone. Both Freemans will be gone. They're expecting to go pro, probably over in Europe. There's just going to be a lot of turnover, which is going to be wild to see. It's going to be a completely different team. I think you'll see the same style, but yeah, man,
it's going to be the same style, but with players that are more suited to it, I think. So they could be a pretty decent squad next year.
I tweeted this out earlier in the week, is that I think this team is really going to miss Terry Henderson. Now, we haven't seen Braxton Beverly really. I mean, we saw him last night, but it was his first game. But we haven't really seen his shooting ability, his scoring ability. But I think what this team is missing is that dynamic shooter. Well, I know they got Sam Hunt, and he's been shooting pretty well. But I think Terry Henderson has a little bit more, a little bit better game. I mean, he's a bigger player. Just one of those. I think we're going to miss that kind of player. That guy can score like that, and he can score a little bit on the inside, a little bit on the outside. Sam Hunt's a little smaller. He's going to end up shooting. But I don't know. Happy to see it, man. Playing defense, scoring a lot of points. Good for him. Let's keep it going down in Bahamas. Yeah. I think Bahamas is next, right?
I'm not sure where they play. There's a battle for Atlantis. I guess that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
still football season?
Where play all is on Arizona? Yeah. It's hard to get anything much out of these first couple of games. That Arizona game will really put things into perspective, and I hate to say it, but bring people back down to earth a little bit, which needs to be done. Don't expect this team to win, 25 games. That's not fair to the coach or the players. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens against Zona. Nothing to worry about really until then. We should be undefeated when we play them. So
enjoy the hustle, enjoy the up tempo, and enjoy the defense.
Yeah, it's fun to watch until it starts getting to conference play and there's a foul every 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, that's that one of those games is coming.
Oh yeah, and God help when we play Virginia. Jesus, it's gonna be like a 4-hour game. Like
oh my gosh. All right, let's move on to our locks of the week. Dustin, what you got?
I used to market my locks of the week as guaranteed to pay your mortgage, but I'm pretty sure that they're now guaranteed to make you go default on your mortgage, or make you default on your mortgage. I'm not upset. I don't think anybody saw Carolina beating Pitt.
No chance.
That came out of nowhere. There again, it was a Thursday night game. I didn't even know what was happening. I was watching the NFL game and then pulled my phone out and realized, oh wait, Carolina's winning, and yeah, oh well. It was the good thing for me was it was a Thursday night game, so I hadn't even bet on it because I didn't know. So my lock of the week did not lose me any money. I forgot to leave that part out that you can't actually bet on it. So, trying to look at this week, I don't want to get burned by Pitt again, but they're plus 15.5 at VT. I kind of like that. Those games are usually, they play pretty close game. And VT's offense, I'm still not sure that they even know who they are. And I think their coach kind of admitted that. So that's tempting, but my lock is Georgia Tech minus 6.5 against Duke. Duke is terrible.
I like that one. I'm not sure I have a lot of confidence in Georgia Tech. Like, how many ways can they blow a game this year? Because they've blown a lot of games. But, yeah, Duke's not very good.
Georgia Tech lost to Tennessee, so.
Yeah.
That's, boy. What you had? You had UConn plus 37 last week.
Give me 37 in most teams. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
I got scared a little bit there because UCF started out pretty strong, but they ended up winning 25 or something like that.
Yeah, it's 49-24, so easy cover there. It's really hard to turn down 37 points.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why people... And as hard as it is to turn down getting 37, I don't know how in the world you bet someone minus 37. But people were. Whatever.
Yeah, this week I'm tempted to go with my usual anybody who's playing ECU. But I think I'll back off of that one this weekend. I'll go whoever's playing Miami. I just can't buy me a lot of credit, but man, they're due for the letdown. Like it's ripe. No, they still might win, but I think playing UVA plus 18, I don't know. It's a noon game. I think that stadium will be empty. There'll be no turnover chains anywhere to be found. Give me the Who's plus 18. Going to
That's
Miami.
fair. Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's going to be some kind of a letdown, but I'm not sure that Virginia's a good enough team to make that matter. But 18's still a lot of points.
Virginia's weird, man. They lose one of those games, like they lose at home to Pitt, and then they go out to Boise State and they just destroy them. Like,
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. I know Bronco's a good coach, so he's gonna get it straight. And if they put together a good game, I think they'll keep it closer than 18.
Yeah, they're well coached. There's just a talent issue at Virginia. So if he gets a couple classes in, then there's something to worry about. But I don't think they got anything for Miami.
Yeah, we'll see. And that brings us to America's favorite segment.
That's right. Matt Canada and his Bayou Bengals went and put a whipping on Arkansas. So, 33-10, 217 yards in the air, 198 on the ground. Another solid effort. Just, building the prestige more and more every week. I also don't know if he ran the Wildcat. I'll just throw that out there too.
Arkansas is bad. Going back to the Wildcat real quick. We mentioned it earlier. I don't understand why teams run the Wildcat. Like,
It's awful.
I don't get the point of it. Like, get the ball into your player's hands, an extra blocker. I'm like, I don't know. Especially when you run the Wildcat and you have, like, Finley lined up on the outside. Like, what is that doing for anybody? I don't understand.
I'd much rather see the direct snap or something like that if you want to try that kind of thing. But they know what's coming when you run the Wildcat. Right. Either a run or an interception. So
I'd love to get one of those coaches on Twitter that breaks down schemes and get the inside on the Wildcat. I mean, it's definitely a high school-ish thing where you're trying to get the ball into your best player's hand. I'm just so surprised that it's that pervasive these days.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who was it? It started with what? The Dolphins started running that?
Something like that. Yeah, it was.
And then it just caught on like wildfire, much to my dismay.
That's right. It was Ronnie Hillman, right?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure.
It was Hillman and Cadillac Williams when they were at Auburn.
Yeah. It was just awful. So,
really weird.
But yeah, Canada's just down there doing good things. So,
Canada's gonna be a head coach this year. I'm calling it. He's getting a job somewhere.
Maybe at LSU. So
that'd be great. Speaking of the SEC, I know this is why everybody tuned in this week. Nobody really wants to talk about our game against Wake Forest or the crapper against BC. What's up with Tennessee, man?
Man, I got to be in Knoxville when the Fire Butch movement came to a successful conclusion. It was beautiful. I was staying at the Hilton downtown, and you can see the stadium outside. And during that Missouri game, when they were just getting, walloped, like 50-17 or something like that was the final score. But I looked out and I'm pretty sure I saw tears rolling down the outside of the stadium where it was crying. And then get up Sunday morning and the glorious news hit. And now give me more Grumors, man. I need my Grumors. So, John Gruden's always the fun name for Tennessee searches, and it's always been ridiculous. But this time it's not quite as clear as the media is making it. Like, there's a legitimate, half and half chance that JG runs through the T, and I can't wait.
So here's my question for you. And I get the connections to Tennessee, and his son's there, and his wife was a cheerleader there, and all that jazz. My man hasn't coached a football game since 2008, and he hasn't coached a college game since the 90s or the 80s. I don't remember when it was, but is he the answer?
He will be if he were hired, he would be as good as the staff he put around him.
Yeah.
His name's big enough to attract the players. He'll be able to recruit. I would expect top 5 classes. He's got the personality to deal with that job. The unrealistic expectations that they have at sometimes. It's tough. I kind of look at it like Bobby Bowden at Florida State the last 10 years. Like, he didn't do anything. He was a name. His staff ran the team. Mm-hmm. And I think Gruden would have a much more hands-on approach with that. I think he'd be really good working with quarterbacks, unless he hires Peyton Manning as quarterback coach, and then I would just let that go. But you can look at it and say that there's definitely coaches out there that make more sense, but this needs to be a big splash hire after the past, after the Kiffin, Dooley, and Butch eras. They've got to. They're looking at a position where they're about to be permanently left behind if they don't make a big hire, and they're going to spend money to make sure that they get that, whether it's Gruden or some other guys. But I would be fine with him. I really would. I don't know that he would be my first choice, but he is going to be my first choice just because of the uproar. I mean, Twitter will go crazy if that happens. Like that's worth the price of admission. Just seeing the tweets about it. So I think he wins there if he goes. But he's got to put the right staff around him, whether it's getting T. Martin to come back, Jim Bob Cooter. Yeah. So I would expect a rock star staff if he gets there, and that would ensure that he wins either way.
Right. That's interesting. You know, it's something you mentioned when we were texting earlier, is that if Florida goes out and hires Chip Kelly, which it's looking like they will, you know, Tennessee's under a little bit of pressure to bring in a big name there. So I'd be curious how that affects.
Yeah, especially if they throw Kelly in at Florida. I mean, Kirby Smart's got Georgia playing well. Like, they're in a really bad spot. They have to compete now. They have to do something. There's a ton of talent on that roster.
Yeah.
So if they get a competent coach in, I'm not going to say they're going to win the East next year, but they can compete. And they're really flirting with permanent mediocrity or below if they screw this up again. Mm-hmm. And it's a different AD this time. The boosters are willing to pay an ungodly amount of money. So, I mean, there's a chance that if Gruden were hired, he would be the highest paid coach in college football.
Man.
So, the money's there. I think, I don't know. It's tough. That's a shitty situation though. When Florida pulled the trigger, and I think there's a good chance that Chip Kelly ends up there.
Yeah.
So the East could be on the rise, definitely. So, which apparently it's like they're copying the ACC because the Coastal seems to be doing that too. But
it's funny, Florida fans went all NC State yesterday, and they were tracking planes. They were tracking the AD plane to Connecticut to go talk to Chip Kelly. Like,
yeah,
like don't ever go full NC State fan, folks. That's not good for anybody.
Well, Tennessee fans were doing that this morning when John Curry, their AD, was flying to Charlotte, and they were trying to figure out if John Gruden was still in Charlotte after Monday. So,
I love it.
Yeah, the age of technology just makes coaching searches just unreal. It's a soap opera. It really is.
I really love coaching search season. That's like my favorite part of football. It's so weird. I just love watching people freak out about one thing or the other, and I love it. It's great.
I thought, speaking of coaching searches or coaches getting fired, the whole Georgia firing Mark Richt thing, I thought was hilarious. That Auburn absolutely destroyed Georgia. 40-17 on the same day that the coach they fired wins his biggest game at Miami and destroys Notre Dame and propels them into the top 4 of the CFP while Georgia bottoms out of it. People gave me so much shit for saying that they messed up firing him to hire Smart. And I mean, Smart's got him playing well, but it was, I mean, ultimate Georgia pretty much to drop that game and then have Richt win that game later on. I thought it was a trip. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. It's kind of one of those things that college football is. I think it's so great. It's such an emotional game. You know, Georgia still thinks a better team than Auburn, but they go to Auburn. It's a night game. You know, just all things lining up for Auburn to win that game. And Auburn's not awful, but man, like, anything can happen on any day. Like, Notre Dame's been playing great. They've been running the ball. They go down to Miami. The place is a crazy atmosphere, and then they just can't run the ball at all. You know, it's just one of those weird things that happens, man. And like you see, there's gonna be some weirdness happen this week. Navy beating Notre Dame, or Miami losing to Virginia, or something weird is gonna happen. It always does. That's why I think it's so great.
Yeah, it seems every year I'm like, oh man, there's more stuff like that happening. Yeah. And then the next year I say that again. So I think it's just a consistent, you never know really what's going to happen. I mean, Alabama barely won. So, yeah, college football is fun. It really is. Especially when your team matters. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're so enamored with coaching searches, because we usually don't have anything to care about during the season.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So that we look forward to coaching search season because it's the only excitement we're going to get.
I mean, I love it. It's really... I'm reading Football Scoop and everybody else on Twitter. Man, what's happening next? Who's going where?
I mean, it goes so bad or so deep that it's like I'll see something and then I try and like research the history on what that person has said that ended up being true or not. Like it's a whole game into itself. It's fun.
And I can't even imagine the message boards right now in Gainesville and Knoxville. It'd be
it's scary. It's sad. It really awesome. Is. It's like, oh, I just saw John Gruden on campus, and it's like, no, you didn't. You shut up. But yeah, it's fun. It really is. So
speaking of message boards, I noticed the other day, and this was after the BC game. I went and perused the Wolfpacker, and it just shakes my head, man. Anytime you call a bad play, anytime State has a bad offensive performance, one name always comes up. Can you take a guess what that name is?
What's
Steve
that?
Logan. Every single time. There's not a better coach in there if you listen to the message boards. I mean, everybody's like, Steve Logan should be our offensive coordinator. Every time.
Dude, he broke Kaepernick. I liked him, and then he went to San Francisco, and I mean, as the QB coach, and that was the end of Colin Kaepernick. So I don't know what happened, but that's when he started playing like shit. So I'm just going with that. I don't know what else to say.
Like, his radio show has made him the greatest coach of all time. If he never had a radio show, and I like his radio show, and I like him. I think he's entertaining. He obviously knows his stuff, and he's got some good stories. But man, if he never had a radio show, his name would never come up. But now everybody's like, oh, he's a genius. Like, we want him. Should be our offensive coordinator. The guy has never said one good thing about State. Maybe one in the last 10 years. I don't think.
I think it's between the radio show. He's got the show on WRAL on Sunday mornings. His personality is everything that State would want in a coach, and I think that has a lot to do with it. But I enjoy listening to him. I enjoy watching the show. His breakdowns of plays. I mean, he hit the nail on the head for the Notre Dame game for me, where he talked the next morning on TV about the 4th and 1 or 2 or whatever it was, and it's like your best player on the field right then is Ryan Finley, and you don't let him try and get that. So, I mean, I don't mind. I like the guy. I would take him as a coach, not as necessarily a head coach, but on the staff.
Oh, I'd take him for sure, but his name always comes up, man.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Like every time. Go back in any post-game thread where there's a bad play call. Steve Logan wouldn't have called that. Come on, man. Give me a break. Oh, anyway, all right. Who's your top 4 this week?
I'm about to blow people's minds because I want to put Miami at number 1.
Ooh.
I didn't believe in them. They came out and, just destroyed Notre Dame.
Yeah, they did.
When they're in the top 4. Alabama barely gets out of Mississippi State with a win.
God.
Alabama's not beaten anybody, really.
Yeah.
I had said that for the same thing for Miami, but when they do play somebody and absolutely dismantle them, a team that I thought was going to run the table and get to the playoff, I got to throw them up there. So I'll throw Miami at 1, Bama at 2. I'm still torn on Clemson, Oklahoma 3 and 4. I guess I'll leave Clemson at 3. But I'm not sold on them. I don't think they win the title this year.
Yeah.
I'm more worried. I'm pretty excited to see the ACC championship game now. I think I was expecting a Clemson blowout, and I'm not sure that's going to be the case anymore. So that'll be a fun game.
Clemson has shown some weakness. I think that's pretty apparent. It's just a matter of can somebody take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that'll be a fun game. So one more off-topic thing, speaking about Mississippi State. When does Mullen leave?
Man.
He's done all he can do there.
He really has. And he's taken them to, number 1. He's taken them to BCS games, and he had Alabama. He went Wolfpack and played not to lose, and he lost.
Yeah, that last drive was terrible.
Yeah, you got to go for the gut shot against Alabama, man. he had it and they just blew it.
I don't think he can take them higher than he has.
Yeah.
Like he's reached the top. I mean, there's other schools that'll double your recruiting budget, double the attendance in the stadium. I mean, I just don't know how much more he can do there. He says he's happy, but I know that his agent has floated his name for other jobs.
Yeah.
So I would expect a move from him sooner than later, especially if Chip Kelly turns down Florida. He'd be a good fit there. He'd be a good fit in Knoxville too. So
there's not a whole lot of options for him, I don't think. Like, I don't know where you go from Mississippi State. You can take a lateral movement, maybe, but
I mean, that's not a good job though.
it's not. But they wouldn't pay you $4.5 million when I saw like $4.5 million in Starkville's like 100 in Raleigh.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to leave, but if he wants to win a title, he's going to have to.
Right. It's true.
So you're never going to win a national championship, let alone an SEC championship, more than likely in Starkville, Mississippi. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you had your shot with Dak, and now
you're
not getting another Dak.
So.
I don't know.
Anyway, I got off topic. What's your top four?
I'm still giving Bama the Bama bump. I agree with you. They haven't beaten anybody. I mean, LSU's going to be their best win, and they're still unproven. I mean, they're not a great team. I jumped everybody with Miami, too. I think Miami's back-to-back wins against Virginia Tech and then just dominating another top 4 team in Notre Dame. You got to give them the respect to move them up. Clemson, number 3. They got some flaws. And Oklahoma, I like Wisconsin, and I was expecting them to be a little bit closer against Iowa, but they whipped Iowa, but they really hadn't played anybody yet, so I can't put them in yet. And Oklahoma beating TCU, I mean, that was more impressive to me.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up the quote-unquote Bama bump.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a Clemson bump now?
No, I'm going to say no. I think they're close to it, though. I mean,
Wisconsin's 10-0.
Right. Clemson is...
Who's Clemson beating?
Clemson's beaten 6 top 25 teams, though. They're still the most in the country.
But where are those top 25 teams now?
Well, I mean, they beat Auburn. You want to look at that.
But that's early. I just feel like, and I give it to them as well. I think they have, they get a couple extra votes because of their name now. I feel like they've taken that step.
I mean, it's possible, but they beat Auburn, they beat Virginia Tech, and they beat us. I think those right there are good enough. That's more impressive than any wins that Wisconsin has.
Virginia Tech dropped out of the top 25, didn't they?
I have no idea. I mean, they should have, but I don't know if they did.
Yeah. So
but still, I still give it to them. Maybe there's a little bit of a Clemson bump. It's not like the Bama bump where, Bama. If Bama loses to Auburn, they could still get into the college football playoff because of the Bama bump. Like, I don't think that happens to Clemson. If Clemson loses to Miami, I don't think they're getting in.
I don't know. I almost feel like, I don't know. I think losing to Auburn would make it really tough because then you're probably going to have Auburn in the title game out of the West.
Assuming Auburn beats Georgia. Let's say if Auburn beats Bama and then beats Georgia, Auburn's in.
Auburn beat Georgia.
Well, they'll have to put.
Oh, you mean in the title game,
right?
Yeah.
So you put Auburn in, and then you can't put Georgia in again. They lost twice to Auburn. Does Bama slide in there? I don't know who else you would put in there.
You'll have the winner of the ACC now, so there's one. The winner of the SEC automatic. So if that's Auburn, there's 2.
Yeah.
If Wisconsin runs the table, they have to get in.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's tricky. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Auburn could beat Bama. I don't know if that game's at Alabama or if it's at Jordan Hare. Auburn's good enough to win that game, and Bama's not unbeatable.
The game is at Auburn,
so it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, my question of the week for you. Give me your top 5, so just 5, favorite whiskeys.
Well, are we doing like just bourbon or Tennessee or any whiskey?
Any of them.
Top shelf or just overall drinkability?
What are you drinking? Somebody giving you 5 bottles. What are you drinking?
Any 5 bottles I want.
Yep. Yeah.
I really like Blanton's. Blanton's is really smooth. I'll put that on there. Buffalo Trace is really good. This one of my all-time go-to is George Dickel 12.
Oh, all right.
Which is reasonably priced, but the smoothest Tennessee whiskey you can find. I guarantee it. Then that's tough. That's tough. Any of the, well, Turkey 101 is a personal favorite of mine.
Okay.
So that puts me at 4. I've got a lot. I have a lot of whiskey. It's tough to break this down. Man, I'll go off the radar, and I'll go away from my norm. And Crown Royal Black is probably my favorite Canadian whiskey. So I'll throw one of those in there too.
Oh, that's just a Canada reference.
Yeah. No, if I had to pick another bourbon, oh man, that's tough.
I'll give it to you.
There's Noah's Mill. It's a smaller craft bourbon that you can only really find around Kentucky. That's very good.
Yeah.
I've got a bottle, and I ration it quite well because I can't buy it here. So there you go.
All right, fair enough.
What are your top 5 whiskeys?
Oh God, that's a terrible question for me. I'm an Irish whiskey kind of guy anyway. I like Jameson's 12. So I have some Jameson, some Middletons. I'm more of a rum guy. And shout out to Hokey Smash. I was impressed when he dropped his Havana Club on Twitter just a couple weeks ago. Havana Club it's hard to get here because it's Cuban, but man, it's so good. And it's like their version of Aristocrat, which is really weird, but I think it's fantastic. It's so good.
And then I will say a tip for everyone else. You'll think I'm crazy, but if you are mixing your whiskey, Heaven Hill is like $7 a fifth, and mixes great. Don't try and drink it straight. Like, you have to get this on the bottom shelf and then dust it off when you get it home. But it mixes really well. Do not drink it straight. I cannot stress that enough. Funny story. The Tennessee trip took us to we stayed in Knoxville and then went to Gatlinburg for a night just because. And I did all the
Dollywood.
Yeah, did the moonshine tours and whiskey distillery tours. Just got hammered drunk. There is a picture of me that I will probably not release to Twitter of me where the moonshine place had you could buy a lid for the quart jar that has a pourer in it. So there's a picture of me in a hot tub drinking moonshine out of the quart jar through the pourer where it looks like I have a sippy straw of corn liquor, and it was fantastic. That was my night on Sunday.
Come on, Felicia. So, give it to us, Felicia. I know you're listening. Give it to us.
It's trip. Got a room with a fireplace and a hot tub for $70. And then I had basically a sippy cup of moonshine. So it was a good night.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but that's all I got anyway. I'm done.
Yeah, all right.
I'll quit rambling.
That's all I got. Just under an hour here. That's good, perfect timing. As always, thanks for listening. Support our sponsors. It helps us out tremendously. And go Pack.
Go Pack.